Wait, you fixed it. You did something that worked. It's just.
Oh, okay.
You're on. That was the whole fucking thing. The wire. There. I'll let you know.
Let me try this.
That's better.
Okay. Well, I unplugged the microphone.
But I can hear you fine.
Okay.
It's your dog collar because it runs the noise cancellation. Sorry.
Thank you, honey. Okay. Okay, everyone. We're going to try this again. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode 28 of Survivor Strong, the podcast for survivors of childhood trauma. I'm your host, Yvonne Sandomir. I started the show before I realized we had technical difficulties by posing a question to all of you. Have you ever felt like someone close to you has completely shattered your trust? Jennifer Freyd, a pioneer in the field of memory and psychology, introduced the world to betrayal trauma and its accompanying theory in 1991. This groundbreaking concept highlights the profound impact of betrayal on individuals and their mental health. Freyd's research shows that betrayal trauma can be just as devastating as other forms of trauma, such as physical abuse or sexual abuse. It's fascinating to see how Freyd's work has really shaped our understanding of betrayal and its effects on the human psyche. So, what is betrayal trauma? What is the betrayal trauma theory, or BTT as Jennifer calls it? Well, it's a concept that strikes at the very heart of our understanding of trust in relationships. At its core, BTT speaks to the trauma that can be inflicted by those we depend on the most. It's easy to imagine feeling betrayed by a stranger or a casual acquaintance, but what about when the source of harm comes from our parents or other guardians? This type of trauma can be both devastating and complicated because of our inherent connection to our caregivers. It makes it very difficult to navigate emotions of hurt, confusion, and mistrust. understanding BTT can help us really identify the source of our pain and give us framework we need to begin to heal our wounded emotions. So, betrayal can be complex, right? It's complex to discuss. It's difficult, especially when it comes to someone as significant as a parent. The mere thought of your parents turning their backs on you can be heart-wrenching. Just the very thought of it, right? But it's essential to address this topic because, unfortunately, parental betrayal is an all too real experience for some. And, why does it happen? And how does it impact the lives of those who've experienced it? These are questions that we need to explore together. So let's delve into this conversation and share our thoughts, insights, and experiences. After all, talking through difficult topics is often the very first step toward healing. So whether you've been personally affected by parental betrayal or you're simply just here to listen and learn, I'm really grateful you're joining us in this conversation. And so let's explore this complex and important topic together. And let's work toward healing and growth together. So for those of you, whenever you would like to request to come on stage, you can do so by requesting through right here on your icon. So think about this. When a child looks up to someone for love, care, and protection, they expect nothing but kindness and support in return, usually. But unfortunately, not all adults live up to that expectation. And really, betrayal trauma is a cruel form of child abuse where the very person a child trusted and depended on the most broke their trust and actively caused them harm in some way. It is unthinkable to really fathom these children's pain and confusion when the person responsible for keeping them safe lets them down. So, what is active harm? Active harm comes in many different forms, each one devastating in its own way, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, exploitation, psychological abuse, neglect, discrimination, or domestic violence. The result is the same. An individual's property, rights, and interests are adversely affected by that. These acts are not only unlawful, but they're also morally reprehensible, right? And it's important to recognize these signs of active harm. So think about this. We've all been there, right? Procrastinating on making that doctor's appointment or maybe forgetting to take our medicine one day. But when an adult ignores or inadequately meets a child's medical or physical requirements, that's active harm that can have serious consequences, right? Imagine your child being sick and a parent refusing to bring them to the doctor. That's active harm. Withholding medication is active harm. Active harm also includes harm caused by omission, like failing to provide access to appropriate health and social care services. The impact of withholding can be devastating for children who require those services, whether it's therapy, it could be physical therapy, it could be talk therapy, it could be behavioral therapy. There are many programs and services out there that children need that if a parent withholds, that is active harm being caused against them. Also, just a lack of basic needs, such as a safe living environment, clean clothes, and food. Imagine not being able to take a warm bath or having access to the medication when you're sick. That goes to what I was saying before. But these are not luxuries, but rather essential to our well-being. We need these things to survive. And so that's also active harm. And so now that we have a clear idea of, parental betrayal trauma, I want to hear from all of you. Let's dive into the depths of this emotional turmoil and share our experiences. I know firsthand how much it hurts to be betrayed by those who, they're supposed to love us unconditionally. It can leave us feeling lost, confused, and broken. But in sharing our stories, we can begin to heal and connect with others who have gone through similar experiences. So, who's willing to open up and share their story? It might feel intimidating, I know, but I promise you this is a space that is safe. It's a safe space, and we're all here to support each other. And I had said before, for my Facebook viewers who want to chime in, you can share your experience with us in the comments section. And when I'm able to review, I will share with our other listeners. So, it's always great to hear from our audience and connect with every one of you. So your thoughts and opinions matter, and I promise to share them with our listeners. So let's make this a community effort. And so go ahead and start commenting away. And, as we wait for people to come in and request to share their stories or send their messages, I want to say betrayal really is a wound that never truly heals, if you think about it. And when it comes from someone who is supposed to be your biggest supporter in life, the pain is immeasurable. I know this all too well. As I have experienced a lifetime of parental betrayal that unfortunately continues to this day. My story can't be easily summarized, that's putting it lightly. But for those of you who haven't read my memoir, The Invisible Girl, let me give you a glimpse into my world as a child. It is a world where protection is lacking, and trust is shattered time and time again. But in sharing my experiences, I hope to shed light on the darkness of betrayal and let others know they are not alone. Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is speak our truth, even if it hurts. So, just as a reminder, this is my memoir, The Invisible Girl. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, multiple places. So be sure to, get your copy if you haven't already. So now let me just share some of my betrayals with you. Maybe in hearing mine will make you more comfortable in sharing yours. So the first I'll share is I was only 4 when I desperately attempted to escape from an uncle who was molesting me. In sheer panic, my heart pounding in fear of the danger closing in behind me because he was chasing after me, I banged on my mom's door, crying out with my arms wide open, "Help me, Mama, help me." My mom did come to the door, but she ignored my pleas. My uncle, who I had just escaped from, was able to catch up to me, put me over his shoulder, and carry me back to his house or his place. My mom literally closed the door in my face when I was screaming for help over a grown man's shoulder. And unfortunately, this betrayal was only the first of many to come. And I never understood how any parent could ignore their child's plea, how I could be begging for help as a 4-year-old child and my mom ignore that I needed that help. It's unthinkable. But when I go on to share other betrayals, it actually becomes pretty common, unfortunately. After that, my adolescent years were riddled with multiple molestations and rapes. As the closest to me exploited my vulnerability, and my parents failed to intervene. Closest to me exploited my vulnerability by molesting me, by raping me, and by not protecting me. My mom didn't intervene. My dad didn't intervene. No one came to my help. No one was there to protect me. I was all alone. And had I not been alone, those things would have never happened to me. But sadly, from 10 to 14, my mom struggled to provide the basics: food, electricity, clean clothes, shelter, water. We struggled in every area that you can imagine. She fell in love with a man, and he became her priority. And I don't understand why we never had power, why we struggled as much as we did. If you ask my mom, she says they were always working. That's why they were never there, but yet they never had any money. It's just unthinkable to me that any parent could sit and watch their children, because I'm one of four, starve. When I say starve, I know that sounds dramatic, but we were hungry. We didn't eat every day. There were times we had to eat out of the garbage cans and things like that. And it was a very confusing time, as you can imagine. And, wrapped up in that of not having those necessities, I received more traumas. I say received, but I endured more traumas. Despite knowing of my abuse, my mom remained connected with multiple perpetrators, remained friends with them. And I've asked myself, how could she? So many times. And the truth is, it doesn't matter. The hows and the whys, it's not necessary. Any answer she could give would only be an attempt to excuse or justify her behavior. And so, in this sense, I'm really starting to accept that I don't need an answer to that question to heal, because I already know it. I know how it happened. It happened because I wasn't protected. It happened because my mom and my dad and my family members were not there to supervise and watch over me. They abandoned me. And that's another form of parental betrayal. So at 15, so we've gone, through 10 to 14, more molestations. My mom forgave abusers, had to just sit across the table from them like nothing ever happened and pretend like nothing happened. It was very difficult as a kid. And when I think back on it now as an adult, it's just, I think my word of the day is going to be unthinkable, because it really is just unthinkable. It's incomprehensible how this could happen. But just to give you more of my mom's character, when I was 15, I came home and I told my mom, "Mom, guess what? I got a job. I found a job in the newspaper. I answered an ad. I'm going to be traveling the United States, selling magazines door to door. They're going to pay for my hotel rooms. They're going to pay for my food. The only thing is I just have to pack up my stuff and meet them at the hotel tomorrow morning, because we're leaving tomorrow morning. We don't know where we're going yet. We don't know where our first stop is yet, but we just have to meet there." And my mom's response was, "That's great news. Congratulations. Let me help you get packed up." And I think back now, because I have two daughters, 21 and 18. And I think back to when they're 15 years old. And if either of them had come to me at 15 and said, "Oh, Mom, guess what? I'm going to be meeting up with these strange men at a hotel that are going to ride off in a van," and it was literally a white van, Um, it would be the hell you are. No, you're not. Like, how she could even ever allow that is just mind blowing. So she entrusted me with two strange men. She had only known them for 0 minutes. She literally did not know them at all. She dropped me off at the hotel with nothing but a suitcase full of my belongings, waved goodbye to me, and I remember her yelling out the window with her arm, waving out 91st Psalms. And if anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's a prayer for protection, basically. 91st Psalms. As if that was going to protect me. The only protection that I needed at 15 was the protection of my mother. I needed my mother to see that something isn't right here. Who would want to hire a 15-year-old child to travel around? It makes no sense. But still, she dropped me off there and left me there. And when I decided to come home a few months later, I called her up and said, "Guess what, Mom? Coming home. But I'm not coming back alone. I'm coming back because I'm coming back with my boyfriend. He's 25. But I'm 15. Maybe I turned 16 because my birthday's in July. So with all of the trauma I've been through, it's always hard to remember if, 15, I turned 16 or anyway, you get my point. So between 15 and 16, 25-year-old boyfriend. He's coming home to live with me, Mom. Okay, bring him on. Like, what? What? No! It's like, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Growing up, my mom betrayed me in countless ways. However, my mother's refusal to read her only daughter's book and labeling some of the contents as bullshit demonstrates that she has really reached a new level of heartlessness. And this coldness not only neglects me, it re-traumatizes me all over again. Because for 8 years, she's been telling me how proud she is. She's so proud of me for telling my story. Of course she believes me. Of course. But just 3 days ago or a week ago, I find out otherwise. That's 8 years of me investing in trying to maintain this relationship with my mother. After everything she's done to me, I have poured my heart out to her. I have thrown myself at her feet. I have offered her forgiveness. I have offered her compassion and grace. I have given her the opportunity to correct her mistakes. For 8 years, she has asked me, what is it, what can I do to make things better? What can I do to show you that I'm truly sorry? And every time I would give her the same answer. The only thing you can do, my mom can do, to help me heal is to seek therapy on her own. To get therapy to heal from those distortions, this belief system that she's held for all of these years. And not only that, over these 8 years, she's told me, oh my gosh, if I could do this differently, I would do it all over again. I would just do it. It would just be different. I would never do the same thing. I would never repeat these mistakes. But guess what? When her son molested her niece, my niece, her granddaughter, guess what? My mom didn't do things differently. My mom took the side of my brother has basically called my 13-year-old niece, she's 13 now, was 9 at the time that it happened, has called her a liar, told her she's lying, basically says she wants nothing to do with her until she stops lying. Meanwhile, my brother lives with my mother with 2 young girls in the same house. My mom's not doing anything different. She's repeating everything that she's ever done, including knowingly having young girls around perpetrators. My mom's brother, my uncle, molested me. And she did the same thing. To my face, she would say, I hate him. I hate that he did that to you. But when he was still alive and he was around, it was, oh, brother, come let me hug your neck. Or, on Facebook, it would be for his birthday, happy birthday to the best brother. Really? The best brother? You mean the brother that molested your daughter is the best brother? Again, it's just unthinkable, incomprehensible that she could continue to do this knowing what I've been through. She knows she let me down, but she buries her guilt instead of confronting it head on. Despite my pain and suffering, my mom still refuses to accept responsibility for not being there. Instead, she always manages to forget where she was, which is unmistakable because I know where she was. She wasn't near me. She was in a place firmly outside my protection and security, meaning she wasn't there for me. So even though she forgets where she was during those times, I know where she wasn't. And that's what really matters, if you think about it. Betrayal, it's a difficult emotion to grapple with. But children in particular, going back to children in this situation, are particularly vulnerable since they lack the tools and resilience that adults possess. The impact of betrayal can be especially heartbreaking for young ones who feel powerless against it. I mean, think about this. When you're a kid, right, and you're in these situations, leaving an unsafe home may have seemed impossible. But even as adults, it's not easy to let go of the hope of having those meaningful connections with family and our longing for affection. Like, we need affection as humans. In my case, I kept making excuses for and forgiving my mother, even though she betrayed me over and over and over again. But I was desperate not to accept that she was simply a shitty mom. I didn't want to accept that, right? Who would? Who would want to admit that their mom is a poor mom? That's something that many of us battle. Letting go of those hopes to move on from damaging relationships into healthier ones. It's difficult. And reflecting on my past has revealed, positive and negative influences that have shaped me into who I am today, mostly negative. Let's be real, let's be honest. But I have to tell you, identifying these elements really gives a deeper insight into the person I've grown to be. So let me give you some advice. I wouldn't say advice, just, let me give you some tidbits. Tidbits are things that I would say, I'm going to tell you some things, and you just, tidbits that you take what you need and what, resonates with you, and you leave everything else behind. That's basically what that means. But, everyone, and I mean everyone, craves a supportive family to rely on for unconditional love and respect. But sometimes the ones we trust most in this life can inflict the deepest wounds. We know that. But in my own experience of long-term parental betrayal, I had sacrificed self-worth too often just to keep peace with those who should have been protecting me from harm all along. You don't have to do that. Your self-worth is valuable. You are a priceless human being. And too many of us sacrifice our own peace, our own, just peace of mind and security and happiness to keep our parents happy, to keep, to try to please our parents. And just know that you're not alone, that you're not the only one that struggles with this. Being a child of a neglectful parent has induced deep confusion and despair for me. And I'm sure the same could be said for you. Despite all of that, it is still difficult for me to disentangle from this relationship with my mom. I'm here angry, right? I'm so angry, but at the same time, the thought of not having my mother hurts. But for my own mental health, I have to accept who she is and move on. She's not going to change. And I've accepted that, I think. But it's still difficult. It's not easy. Feeling hurt by a parent has profoundly affected me, as I'm sure it does you. It leaves us all feeling rejected and discounted. It's an anguish that cuts deep into the heart, as if my mother denies my very worth and disregards my emotions. When she says that those things never happened to me, she is disregarding everything I've ever told her about my pain, my hurt. It's like, did she ever listen to me at all? Did she ever hear me at all? I don't know. It's devastating. And while I want to figure out why these things happened, I've just accepted that it's an unanswerable question and that pain will continue to linger like an ever-present shadow. I know that. I have to accept that pain of not having my mom in my life is better than having the pain of my mom betraying me and being fake to my face, if that makes sense. It's actions not matching words. It's the inconsistency, right? I would rather have her consistently out of my life than inconsistently in it. And I just want to remind everyone that that's okay. It's okay if you feel that way. It's okay if you don't have it all figured out. It's okay if you don't know. But before I go today, I want to remind you that although the road to recovery from trauma may be bumpy, we must remember that each individual is affected differently, right? So don't let yourself become overwhelmed, because every journey begins with a single step when you're ready. And that's when you're ready. And an essential step in healing is to recognize that instead of ignoring the traumatic incident that has occurred, you have to face and address your betrayal. It's the only way it will help you avoid turbulent emotions seeping into other areas of your life. Because I promise you, if you don't address these emotions, they will eventually flood out over into your relationships, into your work, to your children, to self-sabotage. You deserve more than that. Releasing suppressed feelings is the key to true emotional freedom. Acknowledge that it's okay, even necessary, to experience intense emotions like anger, resentment, and grief. And don't be afraid of examining them more deeply than you're comfortable with. It's okay to be uncomfortable with an emotion. Um, also refusing to face difficult memories can only increase their control over your life later. And I repeat that because it's so important that you understand the longer that you hold it in, the longer that you keep it to yourself, the more of a negative impact it's going to have on your life now. And that interferes with your happiness and your peace of mind. And that's what we want to create. We want to create the happiness and peace of mind. Something that was really helpful for me, because I had so many emotions, I didn't know what was what. So giving your emotions a label can really be the first step on an incredible journey of self-discovery. By naming and recognizing hurtful, confusing feelings like anger, regret, or sadness, they become easier to process, allowing you to gain greater insight into yourself than ever. So think about this. A lot of people go around and say, I'm just angry. Have you ever looked at the definition of anger? Have you ever looked at, you get my point. There are so many emotions that when you're feeling it, try to sit in it and try to describe it. And unpacking these emotions can be overwhelming, I know, especially if you're unsure how to verbalize what's happening to you, because not a lot of people can recognize those emotions. So what I did, and what I encourage you to do, is try exploring definitions for various feelings. Chances are that at least one will sound familiar and ring true to you where you're currently at emotionally. So read those definitions and see what fits for you. See what resonates with you. And then you have a name for that emotion. And do that with all of your emotions until you have them labeled. And then it will be easier to process them because they're not these scary unknowns anymore. You know what they are. And it's easier to deal with things that we know. What is that? It's better to deal with the devil you know than the devil you don't, or something like that. There's some saying like that. Well, there you go. You know your emotions. You can face them and process them. And everyone needs and deserves a comforting presence, as we navigate life's challenges. So experiencing betrayal can be especially difficult, but having someone to validate your experiences and provide a gentle distraction from intrusive thoughts is invaluable. If you're having a bad day, call your friend, call your best friend and just say, I need you to just come over and make me laugh, or I just need you to come over. A support person doesn't have to know every detail of what's happened to you. So don't feel like you have to tell them everything that's happened to you. But someone just being there helps so much. Just someone to not give you advice, but someone to just listen. Someone to allow you to vent can be so helpful. And, as you know, taking care of your mind is just as important as caring for your body. Instead of struggling, to sleep at night, if you can't sleep, give yourself the gift of relaxation with aromatherapy or a warm bath or calming music or nature sounds. That can help ease worries and allow you some peace. My girls will tell you that, when I have my rain on in the bedroom, it's like there's a thunderstorm, it's like Rainforest Cafe in my in my bedroom. But that's how I like it. That's what works for me. And you'll find what works for you. But finally, when you're feeling down, make your day brighter and yourself happier by embracing calming activities like yoga, going for a walk in nature, getting lost in the pages of a good book, or basking in the beauty of gardening, or roaring with joy to some music, or dancing like no one's watching. Do that because you deserve it. You do deserve that. We all deserve that. And, before I go, in the next episode, we will discover the remarkable benefits of therapy, which is also another way that you can deal with these overwhelming emotions. but we are going to be talking with Kara Mumford from the Trauma Therapy Company. I'm really excited to talk to her. She's going to explain to us what are the benefits of therapy? What's the big deal? Why is it so important? Because that's something that I get. Why is therapy so important? Why do I have to go and sit and tell somebody, everything that I've been through? Why do I have to repeat myself over and over and over again? She's going to answer those questions. So any questions that you have about therapy, make sure you bring them for our next episode, because she's going to be here to answer all of them. I think everyone should have access to this invaluable resource. So there's no better guide than an experienced professional, if you ask me. So as a reminder, if you would like to be a guest on Survivor Strong, please visit survivorstrongpodcast.com and fill out the form to be a guest on the show. I thank all of you again for joining me for episode 28 of Survivor Strong. We will be back on Friday, April 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with Kara, right here, live on Fireside, Facebook, and YouTube. I do apologize again for the technical difficulties today, but thank you for staying around and sticking it out with me. Remember, you got this. We are all in this together. Until next time. Thank you for joining, Christy.